Oh, hey there.
Chevrier, young Chevrier, how are you doing this fine evening, my friend? First day of spring?
I'm good. First, well, has it sprung? It's sprung, but guess what? We're getting a snowstorm. Ooh,
Yeah,
what's there?
yeah.
That looks
Welcome to
great.
Calgary.
Haha. Hey, you're wearing it. You're wearing the shirt.
I was pretty excited about this. Rubio started texting us a couple of weeks ago. Rubio, of course, of the Rubio Method and the Decades podcast, both of which you would have seen a little earlier today on the NGBN.TV network, was saying, hey, boys, I got to get your address. Ever since we sent him that poutine, he wanted to send something, put his mark on our show. And I'll tell you what, when I opened up the mail today, it was a nice surprise. We have our very own Chevy and Nasty The Ride t-shirts. Thanks to Chris Rubio. Chris, thanks, man. You're an amazing guy. It fits.
It's awesome. And now I'm just going to lower my mic and get a good view because I think I'm facing my camera here. Look at that. Well, I don't know why I'm okay. There you go. Look at that. The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. This is now made it. This has made it to my primo t-shirt drawer. See, I got 4 levels of t-shirt drawers. I don't know if you have 4 levels of t-shirt drawers like I do, but I've got like my everyday wear them because they're cool t-shirts. Then I've got my my blank t-shirts. So I got my my all black, my all gray, my all white t-shirts. Then I got the long sleeve t-shirts that aren't really t-shirts, but that's a drawer that I have either my cut sleeves or my long sleeves. And then I got my dad drawer. I got my dad. That's where my Homer Simpson t-shirts are. My Darth Vader t-shirts. All the ones that I probably won't be wearing in the company of my girlfriend, but I'll usually wear on a Saturday afternoon or to go to bed. So Chris Rubio of the Rubio Method, thank you so much. You know what? We're going to find out if we can actually source these for our fans because they are fantastic.
Oh, Rob Evans has just put in his order for a 4XL.
And you know what? Rob Evans, by the way, tuning in tonight, 25-year anniversary as a 911 dispatcher. And he also serves as a volunteer fire chief for his Redwood Meadows Fire Department. So he is like always working, yet finds time every week to join us here on the show. And Sheldon, speaking of the show tonight, I think we got a good one tonight.
I think we do. Well, there's a lot going on in the world today. We're going to start off. I can't help but chime in on a couple of things going on just across the ocean with us. As a photographer, you've been hearing all these things about the conspiracy of William and Kate and the photos that have been doctored. And is that an unusual thing? Is that a sign that she's not doing well? Maybe she's already dead. We'll talk about that a little bit. And Chevy, you had a great idea. We're going to break down all things Bond a little later in the show as well, right? One of the all-time classic series.
Well, and the reason is one of the rumors coming out of London is not only the stuff going on with the royal family, but there's rumored to have been selected a new Bond because the throne has been vacated. So we'll talk a little bit about Bond because I love Bond. I think it's great. We'll have it a little bit of British. And I figured why not talk some Bond? And then, a few other things going on in the world, talking about Boeing and the troubles they've been having lately and some real intrigue and conspiracy. We're talking about conspiracy theories concerning whistleblower, and we're going to talk about whistleblowing in general. And then we're going to wrap it up, guys. Sheldon and I, Nasty and I, we have leftovers. And if you read the show description, leftovers, it's not food. It's things that we wanted to talk about in the last number of weeks that we never got to because probably I speak too damn much. But we just run out of time. And even with overtime, we didn't get to these topics. So a couple of things we want to touch on. It's going to be a great show. Obviously, we got 300-pound poetry and a few other things to touch on. We are here. We are live. It's The Ride. I'm Chevy. He's Nasty. Welcome to The Ride.
Welcome to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty on the NGBN.TV network, also streaming live on, a few places now, on Roku. You've watching us on YouTube, on Facebook. And as always, guys, we're glad to see our regular crew joining us here today. Guys, we're going to have a good one today. I want to see a lot of comments. You guys really drive the direction the show goes. Maybe I just made it kind of their fault for the way we go off the rails.
Yeah.
But we love the input. But before we get going, Chev, I just got to bring up some bad news that we were talking about this before. And you guys all know why we're here and the mission of our network, saving men's lives. And, it's just something ever since I've been a part of this, and especially with our April 6th date coming up. We lost two more good ones today. We lost Chris Simon, former Calgary Flame, former Quebec Nordique, a tough guy in the NHL, that, like so many guys, so many fighters, especially, was battling some things, was dealing with some brain injury and CTE afterwards. Lost him today, guys. We lost a lesser known player named Konstantin Kolstov, and and it's just, you just keep hearing these stories, guys, and that's why we're here. I didn't know them personally, but every life we lose is an absolute tragedy. And guys, so let's just, listen in on the show. Let's stick together, reach out to each other, take care of each other. And April 6th, Chevy, why don't you set that up?
Yeah, so April 6th, as many of you know, we are going to be on the mission to save a life. And we are going to be doing a live suicide prevention training from 9 a.m. Eastern to 11 a.m. Eastern, and then again from 9 a.m. Pacific to 11 a.m. Pacific. And here it is right there. You can register on ngbn.tv /save a life. Again, it's on April 6th, and we're equipping ourselves to save a life. And yeah, just on that note with Chris Simon, it was one of those things where I didn't really want to say anything because I wasn't sure the cause of his death, but the family did confirm this this evening, this just in, that it was death by suicide. Just like young Constantine was that was released to the media this morning, but Chris Simon, it wasn't released until later this evening. The family released a statement. It said that the family strongly believes and witnessed firsthand that Chris struggled immensely from CTE, which unfortunately resulted in his death. And again, not to go in too much, but obviously the family's grieving, friends, teammates who knew the guy, the condolences pouring out. I remember growing up watching the fierce rivalry between the Montreal Canadiens and the Quebec Nordiques, and I remember he was a tough guy. It was Chris Simon, John Kordic. Those were heavyweight tilts that we see these days. And that is a side of hockey that it's interesting, Sheldon, because when we talk about that sport, the fighting is celebrated by many. Everyone appreciates a really good tilt. In fact, tonight I was looking on Twitter, topics trending, and trending right at the top is Reeves from Toronto in weight tilt with a pour from Philadelphia, and we celebrate that, right? Like, we celebrate the tough guy, we celebrate the enforcer, even though it's being phased out. Whenever there's a heavyweight tilt, like last week, Reeves, who seems to be at the center in many, was had a heavyweight tilt with a Calgary kid from the Rangers, Josh Rempe. And so, we celebrate. I love a good hockey fight growing up. Chris Nyland, John Kordic, those were heroes to me. But now you see what's happening to these guys. Dan Carcillo tweeted out today that the hockey fighters, they're leaving us at a younger age than most, just like many professional football players, especially linemen. Those hockey fighters are really succumbing to that CTE type injury, and we're seeing it. And someone that from your past that played in the NHL, right? That succumbed very similarly, right?
Wade Belak, I went to high school with him. Just an amazing guy, and so many of these things we do celebrate them because it's almost like the attraction we have to professional wrestling. These guys come out there, they handle their business. It was exciting. A lot of them have big personalities, and you don't see the damage being done. And I think there's still a lot of work to be done to understand what exactly happened to these guys. All right. All the traumatic brain injury, even just the trauma of being up for that night in and night out, and then suddenly being let loose into the world. I mean, there's something there that we're missing, guys. And again, all I can say is take care of each other, guys. Watch for the signs. Let's get ourselves educated to make sure that we know to be there for our friends and the people in our network, so that we put a stop to this, because it's getting hard.
Yeah, great call on that, Sheldon. Great, and that's the thing with the ride. We didn't know we were going to start off the show with that. We knew we wanted to obviously plug April 6th, which is a big event and a big thing that we are trying to promote. But obviously, when you have such a connection, in terms of, Chris Simon was a Calgary Flame. He was
Big
on that
time,
run that
yeah.
we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So to have that real relatable story really cements why this is important, why it should be important in all communities, not just in Calgary, but anywhere that people are listening. And we want to spread the word. But with that, I think we should change gears a little bit, Sheldon. Let's get on to a happier note, because we did prepare a poem this week.
We did.
And everybody's here. The band's all here. Everyone's joining us, and we want to make sure we entertain you as well. So Jenna, without further ado, cue the music. We are the 300-pound poets on 300-pound diets. If you haven't heard our show or stayed to the end, you definitely should try it.
On the weekend, Chevy's Habs lost to my Calgary Flames. While I reveled in the victory, Chevy, it was his turn to feel the shame.
Oh, man, I felt the shame. In fact, I actually slept through the whole game. But suspicious activity from the Princess of Wales has the British people and pretty much the world spinning some wild tales.
The world's attention this week is on Buckingham Palace, where the royal paparazzi are creating rumors and malice.
You said Buckingham with a B and not an F, right? I thought I heard an F.
I think I did.
I swear I heard an F. Well, if you are taking a flight soon, you might be going to England. If you are coming or going, the chances are you don't want to be flying in a Boeing.
Well, we hope you're all recovered from the fest of the four-leaf clovers, because we've got lots to cover, and we're serving you up some of the Chevy and Nasty leftovers.
Yes, we are. We need some little applause. Like Mr. Brooks has on his Cowboys podcast. We got to have some applause, just like he does, because he does a good job of having it out. But maybe we don't deserve applause. I thought that was a weak poem today.
No, that was a Chevy. There was nothing wrong with that poem.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know what? I thought
if you're into that whole poetry thing, which I'm just glad that all of you fine folks out there have been sticking with us. And I never liked the poem right from the time you brought it up. I thought it was a bad idea, right? But every time we do it, it kind of grows on me a little bit more. And it's, I don't know. It's one of those things like a fungus, right? It just kind of grows on you. And then if you ever get it removed, it would just kind of feel different, right?
I don't know. If I had a fungus growing on me, I'd be pretty happy it was removed. Well, we're not talking about fungus tonight. We've got tons of listeners. Love that everyone's here. Jenna loves the 300-pound poetry. Little applause from Jess Lim. And everyone here, James and Rob Evans. Again, thank you for joining us. So we have, there you go, AC, fire up the Chevy, because it's nasty time. Well, we want to start in Buckingham Palace. And the reason we want to start there is because we're speaking to some of Sheldon's passions tonight. And his first passion is for the monarchy. No, actually, your passion is for photography. When we talk about We Drone Calgary, the real estate photography company, we're actually talking about what butters your bread, which is your photography company, your drone photography company. And
it's a lot more. It's a lot more than just drones, Chevy. So,
right.
So basically, what I do is, I do real estate media. I got into this during the pandemic, COVID time, when real estate was kind of slow, and I was like, oh, geez, the world needs more advertising, and people need to see houses without going through them. So I kind of took a passion I had from a kid and relearned it now. But so a lot of the work that I do outside of just shooting houses and videos and all that stuff, I do a lot of headshots and portraits, things like that. I shot yours a couple of weeks ago, which I think we should still show on the air because it was awesome. Although you look like a bad mama jamba in that one. Hey, and Rob Evans just did his advanced pie slice. I got I got that one myself. But here's the thing. I don't think there'd be a controversy here, except for the disappearance of Kate from all public events. I mean, we all heard that she went through in a pretty traumatic, pretty serious form of stomach cancer. I understand, right?
Yeah. So let's, for those people that don't know, because there might be some people like Jenna doesn't know what's going on. So Kate,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Princess of Wales, Kate, you got me messed up. You said Kate Winslet before, and it's not Kate Winslet.
Well, I don't even know if she has a last name anymore, right? It's just the Princess of Wales.
Yeah, it's just the Princess of Wales. She had a stomach surgery, abdominal surgery before Christmas, and disappeared from the public eye. Amidst the paparazzi in England is they're dying for news, and when things happen to their royals, when the royals breathe, when the royals poop, there's a camera there, and people want to know what's going on. They want to know what color it is, and we haven't seen her for months on end. And there was speculation that something's wrong, so a health crisis, and no one knows what's going on. In the meantime, the King Charles is having some complications with cancer, and people are thinking, oh well, there's trouble in the monarchy. So the fires are stoked, and the fires are burning, and there's smoke, right? And then she releases a photo last week, and I think we have that photo here. There's the photo. Now, I mean, to the untrained eye like myself, I'd be like, oh, there's a family photo. But apparently this photo was completely doctored. Now, Sheldon, I'll let you take over here because I know nothing about doctored photos, but you obviously know a bit about photography. So what are we dealing with here?
Well, the way I see it, and I've heard a lot of speculation on why it was done and all this stuff. But whenever you have a photograph, like, let's face it, all of us want to see ourselves and present ourselves at our best, right?
Right.
So as it turns out, the way Kate says it is that she's a bit of a hobbyist on Photoshop, and she was just trying to doctor the photo like so many times. Like, if you want to talk conspiracy theories, if you saw the work that I do on portraits and on headshots, you'd be really into a deep, dark conspiracy theory, because I go in there and I whiten people's eyes and I remove zits and clear up the pores or hide the pores in a lot of cases, fill in some hair. There's a lot of things that you can do. However, for an amateur and somebody that's not doing it all the time or 24/7, a lot of times it's easy to screw some of those things up. It looks good to you, but to a scrutinizing eye, it's kind of hard to hide the mistakes of an amateur job. Now, in all fairness, a lot of the work I do, I'm sure if it got scrutinized the way her work did, you would be finding a lot of little errors too. But the fact is, most people don't look that closely at a photograph. But here you're talking about royalty who's been missing for a while. Yeah, okay, her hairs are disconnected and they're not touching up. Does that mean they photoshopped her whole face? No, she just wanted to probably take a head from one shot that she had a nice smile and put it on with one with the kids that she likes best.
That's not even a current
The hand
photo.
went a little bit low. She lifted up the hand.
I'm just looking at that photo, Sheldon, and that hand, the one, I guess it would be her left hand around her daughter there.
Yeah.
That hand looks like a creepy zombie hand compared to the other one. Like,
yeah, it is. Yeah, especially when you see that little black thing below the fingers. There's no way her wrist is there from the angle is that. In fact, what you should be seeing there is very likely you should be seeing the grass in behind there, right?
Oh, okay, so the real question is, this photo's doctored. Why did she do it, and what does this mean? Because I mean, it didn't do anything to quell the rumors.
She's sitting at home. She's sick. She's on recovery. She's not doing any events. It's time to work on something she wants to do. I mean, to me, this is a big nothing story.
Do you think she's messing with the public? Like, just
no. I don't think the royalty does that. But the number one thing that's driving this is the royalty have this position about never apologize and never explain, right? Just be. They go about their days. If there's a mishap, you just move on like it never happened.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, there's been more photos coming out after that where she's still working on her Photoshop skills. And if she ever wants a job, she can be my online editor. I'll send them to her overnight.
Yeah.
She can do them from the UK while I'm.
Well, there you go. But yeah, it just gets weirder and weirder. There was a video of them released walking at a farm, and people are saying it's not her. It's a stunt double. There's a lot of speculation. This week, Buckingham Palace put out an announcement. They're going to have a major announcement this week. So just a lot of noise.
My final take on that, though, is if you're royalty, I know you've got your hobbies, but come on, you've got paid people on staff, pay an editor, pay a photographer to do their jobs, and this will be a non-issue. Even just say, hey, can you move my hand on this one? Hey, I want to see this face on that, because that's hard to do. Replacing your face is hard to do, right? It really is.
Well, I tell you what, like for me, my last take on this is, 1, I could care less about the royalty. Like, I have to say, whether it was the coronation of King Charles, whether it was the marriage of these two or Meghan and Harry that they have their own. I could care less. I could absolutely care less about the monarchy. I think it's a waste of money. I think it's a waste that we have to still pay homage to them. We are not part of the British Empire. We're our own separate.
But we
country.
are. Our Court of Queen's Bench, in fact,
Yeah, I know. But you know what? We're affiliated with the monarchy as much as Louisiana is affiliated with Putin. They're not, right? There was some brief connection hundreds of years ago, but now we're done. And but this, what I was going to say, this has got the world talking. So she probably got a lot of followers out of this, and she probably pulled a page out of Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's book, create a little bit of mystery, a little bit of controversy, and you get some people looking your way. Because you know what? Part of being the monarchy is being important to people who don't know you. And again, it could go too far, like what happened with Princess Diana back in the day when the paparazzi chased her. She had a car accident, she died, and I'm sure they're worried about that when she makes her first official public appearance. It could get ugly. But you know what? Beyond that, I think I'm done talking about the monarchy. I'm just
trying to figure out what the fascination is. I'm with you. I'm done with it. But geez, there's a lot of people, Chev, that are spending a lot of hours looking at this stuff that has no impact on their life.
I wonder if anybody listening tonight, and if you're listening in, chime in. Do you follow the royalty? Because I don't. But you know what I do follow? Her Majesty's Secret Service. And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit of Bond. We were supposed to talk about it in the first segment, but you know how it goes. The ride goes off the road, and we're going to take it where we want to go. So right now, we're going to take it for a little break. We're going to pull up our socials so you can follow us at Chevy and Nasty, Facebook, Twitter, which is now X, Instagram, YouTube. We're live on both YouTube and Facebook and the NGBN.TV network. Send us a note once in a while. Give us a little comment. We love that we got some new listeners tonight. I see my old midget hockey coach, the man, Tony DiCero. That was one of my first hockey coaches listening in from St. Leonard in Montreal.
There you go. Welcome, Tony.
Got a lot of new faces and names. Thanks for joining us. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk some Bond and a bunch of other things.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. In the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, we're on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Hello, my name is Charles Schultz, host of The Edge of Greatness. I hope you choose to join me on a journey into discovering the greatness in your life through the exploration of 7 pillars: purpose, mindset, resilience, discipline, commitment, people, and courage. Hope to see you there.
All right, so back. Now, I wasn't researching James Bond. It was kind of interesting that it all kind of played into existence. Started with all the stuff at Buckingham Palace, and then I saw this picture yesterday. We'll get to James Bond in a second. I saw this picture of Daniel Craig, who played the last James Bond, and one of my favorites, maybe not my favorite, but one of my favorites. And in this picture, I sent you those pictures, Sheldon. It was on Twitter, and yeah, there's some of the James Bonds there. So you got Roger Moore, you got Daniel Craig, who else? You got Pierce Brosnan, Timothy Dalton, some of the greats, right? And yeah, so I thought, we're doing the Queen and the Princess of Wales, and then we're talking about Her Majesty's Secret Service. I guess let's get into it. Sheldon, were you a Bond guy growing up? Because today I saw that Twitter spread another rumor from England, is that they might have selected the new Bond since Daniel Craig moved on. And it's Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's the rumor. Not a very familiar name to most people, but they usually don't pick the most well-known actor. But he was in Bullet Train. I remember him in that movie. He was Kick-Ass in the Kick-Ass movies, if you've ever seen that, which I think he was a kid when he did those movies. He's been in a number of movies. One of the movies I know him from, he played Quicksilver in the Avengers Part 2. He died very unceremoniously at the end. He was a Scarlet Witch's brother, but yeah, he's been rumored to be the new James Bond. So it got me thinking, we're talking about the Princess of Wales, we're talking about King Charles. Well, let's talk about Bond. First of all, I guess, were you a James Bond guy growing up? And are any of you, like, in the comments, let us know. Do you like James Bond? Do you like a good Bond flick once in a while?
You know what? To be honest with you, Chevin, I don't know if this is some kind of club or rite of passage, or if I have to sign over my man card. But growing up, I wasn't a huge Bond guy. Like, I knew Sean Connery, and I knew, some of the classics when it came on, but I never really got into the franchise until Remington Steele, Pierce Brosnan came on. And it was probably GoldenEye was the first one that really caught my attention. And then as I proceeded through life, you know what? I watched them when they came on a Saturday afternoon, but I'm not a big Bond guy. And I don't know if I'm one of the few, because I could tell you're excited as heck about Bond, right?
Well,
and the guy you just named, I have no idea who he is. I don't remember from any movies.
Well, and that's the thing. I didn't know Daniel Craig before Bond. I didn't know Timothy Dalton, who only starred in 2 James Bond movies, but I really liked him there. Rob Evans pulls in the Austin Powers International Man.
Rob, that's me. I'm an Austin man. Yeah, that's totally me.
But
right?
obviously,
I appreciate Bond, though. I really do. But yeah.
But see, when you talk about our network for men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, I would think the evolution of James Bond from the Sean Connery era all the way to the Daniel Craig era, and whoever the new Bond is, if those rumors are confirmed, it really speaks to them. Because, we talked a little while ago about movies and movies that we watch, and there's certain movies that you get into because your buddies got you into them, whether it's a horror flick or like a Rambo movie. But there's certain movies that you get into from my perspective, and I guess from a guy's perspective, that you get into because of your dad.
Chef, we were talking before, and that was what I was going to ask you. Every guy I know that's a Bond guy grew up watching with their dads, and that's
awesome. It. Just like Indiana Jones, but Bond is obviously a larger library, larger category of classic Broccoli movies who created the character. But yeah, I got into James Bond with my dad watching the Roger Moore ones. I wasn't exposed to the Sean Connery until I kind of fell in love with the character, and then went back to watch the Sean Connery, who was super smooth. Sean Connery was smooth but action, whereas Roger Moore was more the ladies' man. But again, just like you, when I hit that age where I was craving more Bond, the Pierce Brosnan Bond made Bond kind of that super action hero. He was the guy that can jump out of an airplane and jump into another airplane and land it safely as the credits roll, that opening scene, right? He made James Bond cool to a different generation. And then he moved on, right? He moved on, and we got the Daniel Craig Bond, who's more of an homage to the old Sean Connery. He was smooth, he was charismatic, but he was rough. And that series of Daniel Craig movies, from Casino Royale to Skyfall, Spectre, those were all amazing movies. But yeah, I love James Bond. I would have to say my favorite would have to be the Pierce Brosnan, because it was the ones that kind of got me craving more and more new Bond movies every year. Whereas the Roger Moore ones, I remember going to the movie theater, watching The Living Daylights. I believe that was one of the ones I saw at the theater as a youngster. But yeah, all the Pierce Brosnan ones were great. But when you think about Bond, you can't think about great Bond movies without, as Rubio asked, villains. I just saw him mention something about villains.
If Chevy and Nasty were Bond villains, what would our superpower? Like Jaws had teeth. That one's obvious, Rubio. I'm surprised you even had to ask. I've got my hair.
Sheldon
I
would
would
have
walk into a room, and maybe Chevy would bald me with his or blind me with his. Well, you're not a bald guy. You just wear hats all the time.
You would kill people with your hair, like Objob did, the old Bond villain with the hat. You remember he looked like
Loved
Mr.
Oddjob.
Fuji.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I would probably have. I would be the man with the golden balls, and I would have like golden footballs, and I would snap them between my legs and kill people on contact. Like I'd have a whole holster of different explosive balls and poison balls. And every time I would attack someone, you would see me bend over in the shadows and throw a ball between my legs. And then in the next scene, the guy would die. That would be like, I would be that as a Bond villain.
Yeah,
that would be so Bond villains. Any classics that stand out for you? Who's your
I loved Oddjob. I love the classics. I love Jaws, who actually made a comeback in the Moon one. I can't even remember what it was called.
Moonraker.
Moonraker. Yeah, Moonraker.
Yeah, Moonraker. Moon one.
But I think there's it was back to the Pierce Brosnan one. Yeah, thanks, bud. In GoldenEye, where they had the MI6 guy that turned against him. I'm trying to remember his name. I have it here somewhere. Alex. I don't.
Alex
Trevelyan. Yeah, and they had that little Russian computer hacker. But Alex, I thought, was just so cold, right? Just absolute betrayal. And I love the way that he died at the end as he's holding on there at the satellite dish about to be dropped. And he says, "For England, James." And James says, "This is for me." And I love that. It was a great death.
You know what? That was a great villain. I will say that the villain I liked the most, because again, it was modern, it was well done, it was classic, was Le Chiffre in Casino Royale.
Yeah.
And the whole scene where they were playing cards. And it seemed like the longest card game in the history of movies, but it was just so, like, in the middle of the game, he poisoned James Bond. James Bond had to go to the car and deliver himself an electric shock to start his heart again, so he could go back and finish the game and win. But I thought that he was a great villain. He was that classic Bond villain, but he obviously set up for more villains. But yeah, some great Bond villains. What about Bond babes?
Well, first of all, I have Bond babes. I'm watching Josephine Lim about her favorite Bond, Daniel Craig. I think it's the reason I didn't like him as much. He was so good, but he was too sexy. You know, he's the kind of guy, he looks so good with a shirt off that if you're watching it with your wife or your girlfriend, you're like, you just want to like change the movies or whatever, because a bit of a physically intimidating guy. In terms of the Bond babes, you know what was her name? Grace Jones. Like, and I'm not talking she was far from the sexiest Bond girl, right? But she was a badass, right? And I think I also liked her because she was with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day in the name the movie for me, Chev, because I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, Conan the Barbarian.
Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, so she played Mayday in A View to a Kill. That came out in 1985. But my Bond babe, I gotta say, for some reason, well, I'm going to give a special shout out to Halle Berry as Jinx Johnson in Die Another Day. I thought that was like peak Halle Berry.
Yeah, totally.
She was at the top of her game. Every movie she made was a hit. She looked awesome in every movie. She still does, but she doesn't seem to appear in as many movies. But the Bond babe I liked because she had probably the second best name was Xenia Onatopp, and she used to kill guys by straddling them and then squeezing them to death with her thighs. That's how she was the Russian pilot that killed people. And I thought, if you're gonna go, like if you gotta go, that might be the way you want to go. Just and Famke Janssen played Xenia, but the best Bond babe name,
a lot of vagina.
Well, no, close. Pussy Galore
Pussy
from
galore.
Octopussy.
Yeah.
That was an actual Bond villain name. And then before we leave this Bond segment, and it seems like a lot of you guys are
Well,
joining in on us. Rob
I
Evans like Halle Berry.
Yeah, Halle Berry was awesome, right? But for me, it was the Ukrainian girl, Olga Kurylenko or whatever. I can't even remember how to say
Oh,
her
in
name.
Goldeneye.
In
Yeah,
Goldeneye, the Ukrainian model that came on
yeah.
and stole the show. It's just something about her. I think I got a thing for Ukrainian girls. I don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah. Hey, you know what? You're married to one, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
But
I
Bond
am.
had a lot of memorable babes, a lot of memorable villains, obviously some great memorable Bonds. But what we love Bond for, I think why most men, boys, men geek out about Bond is not only does he kick ass, not only does he get the girls, not only is it intriguing, but the gadgets. The
Yes.
gadgets are number one. If you had if you had one Bond gadget that you could have, what would it be? What's the
Oh,
Bond?
that's easy. Easy.
Okay.
The jetpack.
The jetpack. Okay.
When I was, because when you're a kid, you just want to be able to do something like that. To strap on a jetpack and just go anywhere like Boba Fett. To me, the jetpack was badass because it was something that seemed like it actually was attainable. And if I could ever just get my hands on a jetpack, the things that I could do, Chev.
Yeah. Well, there are some Bond gadgets that are better than others. I would say the Bond car. Like in general, every Bond movie, there was a scene that featured.
Is that a gadget? Yeah, it's a gadget. Yeah, for sure.
It's the gadget.
Yeah,
it has to be the gadget. I'm looking at Rubio's comment. As long as a Bond jet isn't made by Boeing, we'll get to Boeing soon. I'm going to go back to one of Rubio's comments that I just saw, but I'm going to say the submarine car. The submarine car.
Yeah.
Bond was notorious for having Aston Martins exclusively until the Pierce Brosnan era, which I believe Ford owned Jaguar, and Jaguar had Ford had a heavy sponsorship stake in Ford, and they also owned Aston Martin. So it featured a lot of the newer Aston Martins and Jaguars, and I believe he was driving a Jaguar. There was a time he was driving BMWs because they took a sponsorship money from BMWs, but you can't have the British secret agent driving a German car. As elegant, as luxurious as they are, he's got to be driving a British car. But the one that I love the most, and you mentioned it to me, and then I remember because I even had the little tiny Matchbox version, was the Lotus Esprit S.1 submarine car. Like a sports car that turns into a sub, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
You cannot beat that. Couple of comments going back. Rubio asked us if you could choose, I believe it was one Bond babe to be your significant other, and obviously you can't pick your significant other. Who would you choose? Who would you choose, Sheldon?
Yeah, who would you choose, Chev?
I like who you. Oh man,
I'm gonna go. Like I said, I'm a sucker for the Ukrainian girls, and so as far as I know, Olga Kurylenko is the only other Ukrainian girl out there. So I think that's the one I can say without my wife completely kicking my ass, or my father-in-law who also just jumped on the show. Good genes in those Ukrainians.
I liked Vesper Lind in Casino Royale. The problem with Bond babes, and this is the problem with Bond babes review, is that they're all femme fatales. For the most part, they're either going to betray him or wind up dead. So he's either got a broken heart or he gets extremely angry. That's literally the plot of every Bond movie. He falls for a girl. He follows her into trouble. She turns out to be either working with the bad dudes or the bad dudes hang her from a cliff, drop her, and then he gets mad and gets revenge. So I wouldn't pick a Bond babe because they live dangerously.
I'm pretty sure a couple of the ones that they killed to get him mad also came back to life and betrayed him in the end anyway. I'm pretty sure there's a plot twist like that back in the day.
I don't know.
James is referencing just like Get Smart. And that's a good point though. Get Smart. Was that before Bond? Like that was 50s.
It was during the time. It was during the time. Get Smart, Austin Powers. All those shows that kind of spoofed Bond, but there's no substitute for the original. I think they made a really good push in the last couple of years. The Pierce Brosnan Bonds, and I guess we should wrap this up soon. Pierce Brosnan Bonds made Bond a big screen Hollywood type event, and the explosions, the special effects were just unbelievable. But it got so unbelievable that it became unbelievable towards the end of the Pierce Brosnan run. And with the Daniel Craig, they stripped it down to really bare bones stunts and fights that you would see in the classic movies, done very stylistically. And I thought that's what I loved about the Daniel Craig version. I don't know what the next version is going to be, but I'm definitely intrigued. And I love a good Bond flick. I'm going to bring my boys to the big screen to reintroduce them to Bond. I have the box sets for some of them, but yeah, when you talk about a show that caters to men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and up, James Bond would be one of those characters in one of those films that did. But apparently, it caters to the women in the crowd too. We got Billy Regans Jr. joining us. What's our thoughts? He's asked, "What's our thoughts on March Madness if we have any?" Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't have a ton of thoughts on it just yet, but we're going to take a quick break. This segment was sponsored by Dream Reach Achieve, and you can find us at Chevy and Nasty on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, and all those platforms. Let's take a quick break, Sheldon. We'll get on to our Boeing talk, and I know we're going to get to leftovers. They might be leftovers for another week. Hope they don't get spoiled. But yeah, let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Billy, don't.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health. In the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, we're on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Are you a business owner or sales professional and want to build and maintain a peak performing premium pricing sales team? Are you and your team finding it difficult to work with clients you want to at the premium prices you deserve? The Professional Sales and Execution Certificate Program will dismiss the sales myths that have limited you and your team and stalled your complete company's growth. Learn all about our PSE secret weapons, including the 98.2 premium presentation that helps build a high-ticket repeat sales network. These absolutely dead simple secret weapons allow you and your team to be yourself and utilize extremely powerful ways to decide which clients you want to work with. If you're ready for a high energy and high power training session that will completely transform you and your team into the envy of your industry, simply click here and register and book now. Get started on your premium pricing high ticket sales execution journey now.
Okay,
Billy
so
Regans Jr.
yeah,
I just got to say, you can never underestimate those clones. I always say Cyclones are coming in hot this year, outperforming what was expected of them. I watched them beat Kansas in Ames, Iowa, with that Hilton Magic a couple of weeks ago. I'm pretty excited to see what they're going to be able to do in the tourney.
well, and they're ranked number
I'm
two.
kind of a
They're ranked
homer,
number two, aren't they? Aren't they ranked
they're
number
second
two?
second seed, yeah.
Well, that's pretty good.
In the East. Yeah.
That's pretty good. I'm going to be honest. I don't follow it tremendously. I know that every year Gonzaga is pretty huge, but I'm going to follow a little bit this year. But there's just so much going on that it's hard to get into. It's a great tournament. It's a great tournament, but I don't follow too regularly. Do you get into it, Sheldon, a little bit? I know
not as much as I used to, but I'll tell you what, like as a Canadian kid going down to the States and being at a big time basketball program, it was awesome. I mean, for me, I enjoy that more than I enjoy NBA. When you get there and you're sitting in the student section and, half an hour before the game, you hear the marching band parading in the concourses down below, right? And finally they come out right before the start of the game with the drum lines. It's for me, college basketball is one of the purest forms of sport that's out there right now. And I know it's changed a lot because guys are going pro after their second year, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting to watch. I follow it.
And it's a great tournament, and it falls right between that sweet spot between the end of football People kind of look forward to it. It's before the hockey playoffs, before the baseball season really gets kicked off. So yeah, no, it's a great tournament. Yeah, I've just noticed that your Iowa State Cyclones are second seed. So I'm gonna pull for your team because McGill Redbirds don't have a team in the tournament because they don't allow Canadian teams. So let's shift gears and fly off to another destination.
I think we're in danger of not hitting the leftovers tonight, Jeff.
Well, we got overtime. So
Yeah,
we got some time. We got overtime. We got 50. You know what? We're doing okay. We took our second break at the right time. Everyone's following us. Apparently, a lot of people love James Bond. I'm trying to encourage people to give us their Bond name. We're gonna give a fake prize to the most creative name as we read them out. So if you got a really good Bond name, and you can't take an Austin Powers name and say it's a Bond name, you got to make up an original one. And you can't use golden balls. Golden balls? Was that my name? Gold balls. What did it say? James says, I just can't get into basketball. You love the Hoosiers, though. Watch the Raptors run on the bandwagon. Yeah, I could be a bandwagoner as well.
Not a big Toronto fan.
So let's shift gears. We wanted to talk about this Boeing thing. We talked about your passion for photography and how you doctor photos to make people look good. But now we're talking about Boeing. The airline manufacturer based out of the United States has come under tons of scrutiny with a whole host of shall we say accidents relating to their airplanes. I believe it was last year their entire fleet of 737 Dreamliners was grounded after a couple of crashes. I think one of those planes split in half on a runway. And then just over the last number of years, just a whole host of either crashes or defects.
They've had some trouble. They've had some trouble going back the last 5 years or more.
Now you're an aviation guy. We got Rob Evans got his pilot's license. You have your pilot's license. When we're talking
I actually have my private pilot's license. So
right.
One of the things, for me, this all comes down to Boeing is a great American company. I mean, it was founded on great values, great principles, and they strove to make the best product available. But like so many companies, culture is everything. And, when you start hearing about things like the Alaska Airlines, falling apart mid-flight due to faulty maintenance, right? And that's the key thing here, faulty maintenance. That's a culture thing. In football, that you have to do, you've got to do the little things right every single time, whether someone's watching or not. And it's not just in the big games, it's in the small games, it's in the pregame, it's in practice. The little things are important. And you're starting to hear with a bit of a concerning issue with Boeing, where a lot of the maintenance that goes back there, guys are just happy to wear the jersey. Guys are just happy to work for Boeing. Simple little mistakes that would have never happened before are now happening. Now you even get into things like United Airlines. Like I was looking for some Boeing issues that have happened. 757 for United, diverse due to wing damage, a piece of a slat, like the front leading edge of the plane flies off, an engine failure over the Pacific. How scary is that?
Yeah. Billy Regan's asked us, if they give you $1 million, would you get into one of those Boeings right now?
Yeah, I still will, but I'll tell you what, you're thinking about it though, right? It's in your head. You can't get into a Boeing without at least thinking about it.
Nanamana says someone is not tightening their nuts. Yeah, they're not. And I mean, if we take this a little further to kind of the topic we want to talk about, what's been going on is, this Boeing whistleblower, the person that kind of brought up the issues of lack of quality control, rushing on the production lines, this John Barnett, he was a quality control specialist with Boeing
for 30 years.
30 years. He's 62 years old. He was filing depositions, providing whistleblower testimony because he was concerned, right? And he was in the middle of his testimony. He had provided 2 depositions, was going to be providing another one. And in the middle of his deposition, they found him dead in his car by an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Now, man, if there's anything that reeks of conspiracy and suspicion and big corporate deviance, it's got to be this. Like,
even more too. So that was one I kind of looked into because I was looking for the smoking gun. I was looking for 3 bullet wounds to the back and strangulation marks and things like that, like fishy things. But no, it was, they called it a suicide. But I was watching this interview earlier today when you brought this up from a lifelong friend. Her parents were best friends with his parents, and he'd actually said to her, he said that he predicted that something might happen to him. And he told her, if anything happens to me, if I die or go missing, which some whistleblowers have gone missing, it's not suicide. It's not me. I'm happy. I'm happy to do my part. I'm just trying to get things corrected. And bam.
And obviously, I mean, like I said, to anyone looking at this, it's stinky, it's stinky.
It's more than that though. If he and I heard her testimony, I heard her say it on the news that he told her, if anything happens to me, it's not suicide. What does that tell you, Chev?
Yeah, no,
How big a business is this? I'm not saying that they killed him, but he did say allegedly that I have no intention of killing myself.
Well, Sheldon,
words to Jeffrey Epstein, but for different
when it tastes like a fart and smells like a fart, chances are someone took a dump. But yeah, he had a history of speaking out about the company, right? Like talking about their dangerous and negligent practices. He left the company in 2017, and he was worried that there would be some catastrophic failures. And I want to pose the question, and this is what I want to talk about, not just Boeing, but whistleblower culture, right? Many corporations. I work for the city of Calgary. We have, a whistleblower hotline. Many corporations want to maintain the integrity of their corporations, the integrity of what they stand for. And a lot of times, the only way you could do that is to have a culture where people feel comfortable to step forward with injustices that they see. But I want to ask you, because in so many cases, we see that whistleblowers wind up, bearing the brunt of, well, in this case, potentially death, like you said, disappearance. You talk about, look at Russia. Anybody that speaks out against Vladimir Putin wind up dead within a couple of months. Alexei Navalny, one of Putin's biggest critics, he was in prison, winds up dead from poisoning. The airplane that was blown out of the sky. Alexei Navalny. Alexei Navalny was found. He was found dead.
He was Putin's chief critic, right?
Yeah, and then there was the other guy, the general that kind of led a semi-coup against Putin mid last year. His plane gets crashes.
I mean, but when you're talking Russia, that's just, I mean, Putin's going to do what he wants to do. Well,
let's bring it back to here where people don't expect to die.
So even a few years ago in BC, there was a whistleblower from the BC casinos with all the money laundering that was going on. It came to light, and he didn't die. Allegedly, he's just not here anymore. Nobody knows where he is. Nobody's seen him, and nobody talks about this anymore. My thing for this, the problem with whistleblowing is, yes, everybody says the words. We have to do more. We have an open culture. We need to let our people speak up because it's going to make us stronger. But when you're not talking about a mom and pop restaurant where somebody didn't wash their hands and somebody got sick. We're talking about billions of dollars. We're talking about billions in investments, people's 401ks, people's power and prestige. And let's face it, if you're a quality control guy making $106,000 US a year in Seattle, Washington, and there's people that are losing everything, reputation, power, the move up. There's a serious temptation, not just to silence the other person, to silence a whistleblower, but to absolutely bury them and make them look ridiculous. We do not have a culture where we allow people to speak up. And it goes back to our primal instincts. It sounds nice to say, but if you're in the forest and you were a vegan for the last 3 years and you see a deer and you got to eat, you're going to eat the deer, right? Rather than you die, you're going to make sure that it happens to somebody else. And I think that's the problem with whistleblowing. Yes, we say the words that we're going to allow people to come up and speak up. But at the end of the day, there are more powerful people further up on the food chain that will not let it happen.
Right. But again, if you're working in a company, you or any of our listeners, and you see an injustice, do you have the courage to speak up if you see something that is not right? I don't know. Like, I'm going to tell you this. I'll tell you this story, and I told it at publicly at a eulogy for one of the Stampeders owners years ago. So years ago, when we won a Grey Cup in 2014, what people don't understand is when you win a Grey Cup, everyone and the horse gets a Grey Cup ring. And I'm not lying. If you sold tickets, if you're in advertising, if you're in the cheerleading squad, everyone pretty much gets a ring because the players won the Grey Cup, right? And yep. I'm sure that's the same that goes on. Now, we had this guy that worked with us, okay? And he was on a program where it was, he had a disability. So he was on a government program where the government subsidized some of his income. He helped out in the equipment room. You wouldn't know him because he was after your time. But basically, everyone but this guy who showed up almost, I believe he was on an everyday schedule to work, to pick up our jock straps, to clean the toilets, to do all the dirty, crappy work, getting a half salary subsidized by the government. But obviously, it wasn't a full payoff for the team. This guy didn't get a ring.
So, Chev, if you look at the time, though, as great as the story's about to be, I'm getting a voice in my ear that we're going to have to get out of here. So, guys, we're not ending the show right now. We're off the NGBN.TV network, but if you will jump onto YouTube or Facebook, you can find our live broadcast here. We're going to keep the show going for a few more minutes and finish up Chevy's story. Guys, once again, thanks for following us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments. And we can't wait to see you here in about 2 minutes.
All right. Well, I'm back. Sheldon's gone. I guess it's 30 seconds. So I'll continue telling my story. So we're talking about whistleblowing. And I just find it so funny that he's not there. Yes, we're in overtime. Jenna, show the overtime graphic. We got to do the overtime graphic, baby. And when Sheldon comes in, he's going to be laughing. Could someone, Jenna, can you text Sheldon, let him know we're on the air, even though his phone's probably sitting. Oh, there he is. Overtime on the shirt. See, I had to come in and fill about 30 seconds. I filled about 30 seconds while you were there.
That was about 18. Did you see that?
Maybe, yeah. So Sheldon turns around in the back of our very stylish Chevy and Nasty t-shirts provided by the very generous Chris Rubio of the Rubio Methods and the Decades podcast. Thank you, Rubio, for the shirt. We got overtime in the back. So it was definitely set in the stars that we were going to go to overtime. But before the break, we talked about whistleblowing. We talked about, do you have the courage to stand up when it's hard to do? And I was telling the story about how when we won the Grey Cup in 2014, everyone in the organization got one, except for one person that really, if I'm going to say anyone that deserves one, it's anyone that's picking up anyone's jocks, cleaning the toilets of the players who go out in the field and play the game. And that was the time when the Calgary Sports and Entertainment Company, the Calgary Flames, had purchased the Stampeders, and they were still, evaluating it as a business unit. Where can we spend money? Where shouldn't we spend money? I'm sure they were making some decisions that were based purely in a monetary value. And I think they thought, well, we're going to save about $12,000 or whatever they would pay for a ring there. And, some players thought it was not very just. And I remember speaking to one of the minority owners of the team, Kevin Bennett, who is no longer with us. He passed away a couple of years ago. And I got to tell this story at his eulogy. And I just brought it up to him. And I said, Kevin, if anyone deserves a ring, it's got to be this guy. I get the ticket sales people do a great job, but I never played in front of a season where the stadium was sold out for an entire year. Did they win their championship? The horse gets a ring. I get it. He runs down the field, but he doesn't score the touchdowns. All he does is show up, and so again, not to make light of it, but I brought it to one of the owners and I said, I think we need to make this right. And this kid, he was super upset at the time. He made a Facebook post. I called him up. I told him to take it down because last thing he wants to do is lose his job. And I talked to one of the owners. I said, listen, at the time I was worried about losing my job for this, because if the wrong people heard that I made a stink about it, I could have been the next guy out. And I was really worried about it. But at that time I thought, you know what? I've been playing this game long enough. I know what the right thing to do is. And it was to make sure at least someone knows that this kid didn't get a ring. And to his credit, Kevin made it right. They got him a ring, and he's very happy that he is part of the history of that Grey Cup winning team. Now, it wasn't a major injustice. It wasn't a safety issue. It wasn't something that I was worried about getting killed over. But I tell you, it did cause me some anxiety.
Allegedly.
But it caused me anxiety because I was worried about my own job, right? I was worried about if the wrong person heard that might not have liked me as a human being.
And you know full well it doesn't take much to get viewed as the problem guy or the complainer. But when you go back to our bro code and that we talked about last week in the right thing, that was the right thing to do, right? That was the right thing to do. Yeah, you put yourself in a little bit of dangers because you don't know what the owners were squabbling over, fighting over. Maybe there's a lot of guys picking their guy that they thought it should have gotten it, and they just decided on that's it, right? Yeah. In this case, you did the right thing by standing up. But Billy, and the right thing happened, and I think everybody walked away feeling good about that. Was there some risk? Yeah, there was some risk.
There absolutely was. Yep.
I did something similar with young Casey Crehan, a coach that we had when Matt Dunnigan took over the club, and they're trying to save money on saving coaching spots, and they thought we could get away without having a defensive line coach. But at the end of camp, they were sending our defensive line coach away, who made a tremendous difference. He was probably the best technical coach I'd played for. And I won't say I was spearheaded it. Joe Fleming was the first guy to go in, so he was the guy to break through the wall. But yeah, I walked in later that day and I spoke up for Casey Crehan because I thought this is what's going to make us better, and I thought it was the right thing to do. Here's sticking up for a kid without a voice or a guy without a voice. Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. But in a lot of these real world scenarios, though, like, boy, I'll tell you, it's tough. What would I do? It depends on how strongly I believed in it. Billy Riggins Jr. was mentioning earlier, what do we have to do to change that in the world, right? You got to be willing to go down with a ship. And again, we say in our show, we're guys that are long past our age of our invincibility. And 10, 15, 20 years ago, I'll tell you, I would have walked in there and done the right thing. And right now, depending on what it is, it's tempting just to go and worry about your own, right? Yeah. I would like to think I will take the negative pressure and I'll take the bullet, sometimes literally, to do the right thing and make sure the right thing happens for the next generation that comes after me. I'd like to think that I would do that, but I'll tell you what, not everybody does. And it's a hard decision to make.
Well, and I think you also worry about the consequences to your next generation, because it's one thing to say, I'll take the bullet, but you don't want your family to take the bullet. You don't want your kids to take the bullet. You don't want the people you care about to take the bullet, because they didn't experience what you did, and they shouldn't have to experience the consequences. But oftentimes that's the case when things like happen. Like, I'm sure this Boeing employee, if we go back to whistleblowing, before he was threatened, I'm sure his family was threatened. If that's the case, if it smells ugly, chances are it got ugly. And you never know in these cases. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough sometimes to do the right thing when that's the hard choice. It absolutely is. I'd love to hear from some of you. Rob Evans talked about speaking about mental health. That's a hard thing for people. We talk about it all the time on this network, almost so regularly that in our world, whether it's the NGBN network or people that listen to us or people that follow us or people we associate with, it's normal in our world. But just outside the boundaries of our world, it's not necessarily easy conversation for people to have. It's not necessarily easy conversation for everyone in the fire hall or everyone in the football locker room or everyone at the water cooler. You and I, we can have this conversation all day. We can open the show talking about 2 NHL players that committed suicide. We could talk about the mental health issues they might have. We could talk about the training we're providing. But a lot of people will shy away from this conversation. We understand, but those are the hard conversations we have to have. And, to Billy's comment and to many of the people's comments here, I think when you choose the right thing, more often than not, you wind up on the right side of history. I do believe that. I got to believe that, because that's the hope for humanity. Because again, if everyone decides not to choose the right thing, we're headed in the wrong direction. Absolutely heading in the wrong direction. And Rob just put up a comment there. It was hard. It was hard for him. Hard for me to finally wake up about his problems back in 2020.
Yeah. And I don't know what those problems are, but yeah, you do find those times. It's not like oh, there's something wrong at work. My manager's doing something wrong, like whistleblowing. But when you see something systemically wrong or dangerously wrong in an organization, yeah, you know what? Somebody's got to say something, because I will promise you this: some of the worst disasters that you've seen that come of a culture of keep your mouth shut, keep your eyes just focused on your job, do as you're told. Those are the things that end up in tragedy for civilization or for a city or for a company down the road. It's going to catch up to you, but it can be dangerous physically, certainly career-wise, for anybody that steps up and tries to do the right thing. And I guess, back to Billy's comments earlier is can we get more protections for it? Don't screw with the Clintons, as per Rubio at AC. Don't screw with the Clintons, because you'll definitely be gone. But we need to make sure that we build into our society and to our laws that you're untouchable if you come forward. Even if you're proven to be wrong, there are cases where people come forward and there's just on a political agenda or a personal agenda or whatever. But when it's something that is almost, what am I trying to say? You almost have to take a pause and protect that person to hear what they have to say. If they're a crackpot and they're wrong, they're a crackpot and they're wrong. Right. But you have to protect their right to step forward and say something if they believe that an inequity is being done.
Well, and if airplanes are consistently falling out of the sky and pieces are falling on people and someone's speaking up about it, there's a problem, right? There's definitely a problem. So let's shift gears. We talked about,
where do you want to go now? Because I'm almost thinking leftovers are going to be an episode for next week here, Chef.
Wow, we're in overtime. We got some time. Let's hit.
I like those Daniel Craig questions, but
okay, so you know what? Let's go. I think we'll keep those questions for another week in the middle of our show. Let's go leftovers. So, there was a few topics we can knock one out really quick. A few weeks ago, I was making a Moscow mule. Here they are, our leftovers. So it was in one of our episodes. We're going to talk about Moscow mule. I was making a Moscow mule. I wanted the recipe. And then all of a sudden I come up across a few posts on Google, a few searches that restaurants and establishments are no longer calling it a Moscow mule because of the implication that it comes out of Russia. And have we gone that far that we have to rename a classic drink just because? I'm not saying a war is right or wrong. Obviously a war is wrong and people are dying and it's terrible. But Sheldon, you know what? You have more closer ties, obviously being of Ukrainian descent. Are you renaming the Moscow mule because it's a Russian drink?
First off, I've never had a Moscow mule. That looked like a mojito. I've never had a Moscow mule.
Vodka, lime juice, ginger beer. Oh, you missing out. Who drinks
ginger beer?
Oh my God, it's so good. Jenna's piping in here. I think she's on the private chat.
Yeah, yes. I've never had a Moscow mule, but I'll tell you what, after Russia invaded the Ukraine, right after the Olympics was the first time that they did it, when they went into Crimea and Putin's sitting there all cold and stoic in the Russian stands. Yeah, I stopped buying Russian vodka. Absolutely, I will not buy Russian vodka.
Fair enough.
I haven't for years. So the Moscow mule, is that kind of like freedom fries? Remember when France wouldn't join the coalition, so they're no longer French fries, they're freedom fries?
Yeah, is it virtue signaling of a different kind of a political side? Because the freedom fries, after France refused to back the U.S.'s involvement in the Iraq war after 9/11, there was this big call that we are going to rename French fries to freedom fries. It did French fries, like, and Moscow Mule. I love the drink. Like I said, you get some vodka, you get some lime juice, you get some ginger beer, and man,
Jenna and Jamin both are telling me this got to change. I got to try it out. So yeah, I'll give it a try.
You know what? If you want to get political about the war, you could do what a craft brewery in British Columbia did. And I saw this recently. I was at a party and someone brought some craft brewers with proceeds that went to the Ukrainian side of the war. And the craft beer was called Putin's a Dick. And I thought, yeah, you know what? Just do that.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, Putin's a Dick. I think it was a limited run. It's a brewery out of BC. I can't remember the brewery because the party was great, but I did see there were 6 Putin's a Dick on ice. And I think,
Jesse Fine says you need the mug too. Is there a special mug that goes?
Yes,
with try?
So look at the picture again. Jenna, can you pull up the picture? It's a copper mug. If we could pull up the Moscow Mule. So that's a classic mule right there.
Oh, yeah.
Jess, thanks for pulling it out. So you put a little bit of mint as well. You can put a little bit of mint, and it's so good. So we're keeping it the name, the Moscow Mule. We got to get Sheldon. We got to get Nasty a Moscow Mule.
No, I'm not having a Moscow Mule, but I'll have a Kiev Mule or an Odessa Mule for sure. Just make sure it's not Russian vodka.
There you go. Good. Rubio says, if your drink ain't broken, don't fix it. So more leftovers. A few weeks ago, we were talking about backhanded compliment. You set it up. You set it up because
this one's stupid. This one's stupid, right? But it got me thinking. I'm listening to the local Calgary sports radio network, and they're obviously they are the host broadcaster for the Calgary Flames, and so they always try to be kind of somewhat friendly to the talent, and they're talking about this defenseman that one of them was, I think Tanev they was traded, and he had like a rocket of a slap shot, and the other guy, I think it was Mackenzie Weegar. It's got kind of a soft, weak slapper, right? Mm-hmm. It gets to the net, but not with high velocity. But yet he's got a lot of success and a lot of points. And I'm listening to these guys talking about him, saying, "Well, what are the advantages of having a weak shot?" Well, maybe your guys aren't as afraid to get in the lanes, so you get more traffic in front of the net. It's easier to tip, right? It's easy to deflect into an open corner of the net, or maybe it's just like a knuckleballer, and the goalie's not, isn't prepared for the change of pace. And I'm thinking to myself, if anybody ever talked about my shot like that or anything that I did on the field, I'm out of here. I mean, those are fighting words, aren't they? Like, it's a compliment, but it's like a backhanded compliment. It's like, well, the guy's got kind of a limp wrist, but he's okay. It works for him, right? I don't know. Have you ever had anything like said about you like that, where you're?
Well, I mean, we talked about long snapping before, and my Bond name being Gold Balls with the deadly snaps. But obviously, I snapped footballs in both the NFL and CFL for 16 years. I did it. I was very good at it, and I always remember it was always like, well, Chevy's so accurate, but his speed is a little bit off. And it was always like this thing where they'd bring in guys to compete against me. And oftentimes they'd evaluate them only on how fast their ball got to the punter. And we're talking about like a tenth of a second. We're talking about 0.75 seconds down to 0.65 seconds. But every time I snapped the ball, it was always in the same spot. It was exactly where the punter wanted to catch it. It was exactly where the holder wanted to catch it. But every year I got this, well, Chev, you're the best at what you do, but it's just not fast enough. It just doesn't look fast. And I'm like, how can you be the best? How can my kickers, every time I worked with kickers, every kicker I worked with in the CFL was either a Western All-Star, special teams player of the year, broke records for kicking, you name it, punters, kickers, whether it was Sandro DeAngelis, Sean Fleming, Rene Paredes, Rob Maver, Burke Dales, any one of those guys, they were all All-Stars at some point. And I'm not saying it was just because of me.
So let me think about that for a sec too, because you know who else would have loved that? The guy that we're not talking about here, the holder.
Yeah.
The guy that's sitting here like this, right? The backup quarterback that's coming in cold every time. He hasn't done anything the whole game. And what's the difference in time between getting the ball here and down versus here and down, or here or down, or the uncertainty of not knowing where that ball's coming at you? Like
0.10 of a second. It's that 0.10 of a second. So if I've got to throw 100%, if my completion percentage has to be 100%, and I'm 100%, I'm doing my job. If the guy that throws it 0.10%, tenth of a second, and Rubio can pipe in because Rubio is the long snapping expert. If that guy is 0.10 second faster than me at getting the ball back, but 2 to 3 out of 10 wind up over the like high catch for the punter or down in the dirt, who would you rather have? But I always got that. That's the backhanded compliment. But
you're the best, but can you do it faster?
Yeah, you're the best, but could you be younger? What?
Yeah,
I can't do that.
My favorite thing was this. I out of my 8 years as a nose tackle in the CFL, I led my team in sacks for 3 years. For 3 seasons out of the 8 that I played. As a nose tackle, that's a pretty rare accomplishment. Yet the book on me was I wasn't a pass rusher, I was a run stopper. And it never failed. 1st and 10, zone read, Nepaschik gets the sack. Everybody, the stadium's excited, the guys are excited, and there's the coaches calling me off to go to the 3-man pass rush package on the 2nd down. Hey, good job. Now get off the field and let the real pass rushers do their work, right?
Yeah.
The things that just don't
hard.
make sense.
It's hard.
It is. It hurts the pride. Yeah, nice shot.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say this next one. I think it's part of the leftovers package. It kind of leans into the backhanded compliments, but it also kind of leans into me having an existential crisis.
Oh God, this was funny.
So we have a meeting with Jenna and Adam Colazetti. We'll talk about him in a minute. Every second Monday at 6 a.m. we get together. We have a little bit of a little mastermind. We exchange ideas. We kind of get set how we can make our shows better, how we can improve. And it's 6 a.m. And I just started.
It was actually 5 a.m. because it was right after time zone change.
That's right.
I'll tell you what. So we're all trying to be here 5 a.m. right after time zone change, folks, and we're trying to bring our best to it. Right? Everybody's got their energy. You guys are making fun of me because I'm using this mic, so I sound like a radio broadcaster. Everybody else is on their phones.
Jenna slept in,
and all of a sudden we're sitting there. Yeah, Jenna slept in, and
I couldn't keep it together.
Her camera's not working, so she can't come on to defend herself. All of a sudden, Randy just out of nowhere starts giggling, just laughing. It was a hard morning. We're all trying to bring our best, and Randy starts laughing. And then we ask him why, and he starts to tell the story. And he gets somewhere about Montreal and his mom and Chris Rubio. I'm pretty sure there's some poutine in there. And he breaks out laughing again. He can't get the story out. He's got the giggles for like 3 minutes straight, and finally he comes up with this realization.
At 5 a.m. in the morning. I really couldn't keep it together, and I hope I can keep it together for this because Sheldon and I did the show years ago. We did it. We had fun. We were on the Fan 960, and then every year since we talked about getting on this back together until this year. And the premise was this, Sheldon, we need to do something that gives us joy, and this show gives us joy, and we hope it gives all of you listening tonight joy. But in essence, we said we need something that gives us middle-aged men joy and passion to do something that's for us. I can't do it. And I always said this statement. I said, and Sheldon, if just our moms listen, that will be okay. That was the statement. The truth I told myself in the last year. Sorry, I'm shaking my table.
You actually said, Sheldon, I don't care if we just do this thing from our basements in our underwear and only our moms listen to us.
And I was convinced that was my truth about the ride with Chevy and Nasty. If none of you are here, which we hope you don't go away, but it would just be Sheldon and I doing our show, and moms could hear our voice from miles and miles away because both our moms live far away. And one day, because Sheldon, you guys know, I call my mom pretty much every day. Every day I call my mom, and she's 83-year-old Italian mama, nonna, back home, and I was like, Mom, and we don't really talk about the show every day, but one day I say, hey, Mom, do you get a chance to listen to the show sometimes? And my mom is like a technophobe. Like she knows she can't even use an iPhone. Like she has a rotary phone, and that's about the extent of it. She's like, well, when your brother puts it on the TV upstairs, sometimes we watch it. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, why don't you tell him to put it on? She's like, yeah, we did. She said, we watch it sometimes, but when it's not interesting to us, we turn it off.
Yeah, when you're boring, just turn it off. Thanks, Mom.
I was in my kitchen doing dishes. I'm like, what'd you say, Mom? She's like, well, we turn it on, but sometimes there's nothing that you talk about that we're interested in, so we turn it off. I'm like, What do you mean? You're my mom. I'm like, you're my mom. You're supposed to love everything I do.
The one reason you're waking up at 5 a.m. for these mastermind meetings, that you
Oh my
slave so
God.
hard writing your poetry, and even your mom doesn't watch us.
Oh my God. I was like, it was like I was like, what do you mean? Like, this was my truth. My truth about our
Yeah.
show was that the passion in me that I have for doing this, me and you, and
Yeah.
for our moms
It's
that
true.
don't get to see us and hear us. And my mom's like, yeah, I turn you
You know
off.
what? The truth is, maybe we're just not that interesting, right?
Maybe not.
So, guys, I'll tell you what. I think we're gonna start shutting it down for this week. But you know what?
Mom, I love
As
you. If
long
you
as you
listen to
guys
this.
are there, right? And your
I
mom
don't
loves
even
you
know.
no matter what.
I
Look,
bet my
Chris,
mom doesn't know that we do overtime. I bet
Oh.
she does. She has no clue.
You
She's
know what?
probably
Chris
turning it off.
Wiggins and Banff joined us just for overtime. I see him popping in here. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Oh my God.
The Hunzingers out in New Zealand joined us for overtime. And let's plug their show. Guys, tomorrow night, you guys are on live on the network. What time do we tune in to catch the MD and Chef show?
And
Put it up there when you get a second.
Yeah.
Guys, all of you guys that, unlike Chevy's mom, that actually listens to the whole show,
she
or
loves
at least
me.
log in right at the end, guys. We really
Loves
appreciate
me.
it.
You know, my mom's the nicest person in the world. I have nothing ever bad to say about her, but she sure as heck made me question myself. MD and the Chef, I think they're on tomorrow. Jenna, if you could throw it on, I think Jenna is throwing it on the private chat. I'll let
9 Eastern. That's 7 Mountain Standard Time, guys. You guys got to check out this couple. These
you know
guys
what?
are
And
amazing.
we also talked about those 6 a.m. meetings, and one of our local creators on the network, on the NGBN.TV network, is Adam Colazetti. You know, Chevy and Nasty, we fire you up. It's 11 o'clock now. It's past. It's 12:21. You might be looking for a reason or a way to wind down. And Adam Colazetti, he's got a great show called Veritas. It's a meditation. It's story based. Sheldon, can you give a little bit more clarity on
Dude, it's so
what he's
cool. So I started listening to this, and he does like Mars. You're waking up on the surface of Mars with your face in the gravel, and he walks you through getting up. And it's really adventure based, story based meditation where he just takes you for a ride. But his voice and his pace and everything he tells, within a couple of minutes with headphones on, you're just like, oh, you're just so relaxed and into it. Yeah, really neat guy. He's a film producer. He does all kinds of social media or all kinds of media work on his regular gig, but he's gotten into some real cool Dungeons and Dragons, science fiction, and just calming story-based meditation. You guys got to check
right
him
up
out.
there.
Yeah, go on to ngbn.tv or check him out on the network. You'll see his stuff. Just new guys starting off, but it does some amazing work.
Veritas. And back to Dr. Isabel and Michael, MD and the Chef, 9 p.m. U.S. Eastern savings time. So 9 p.m.
7 Pacific.
In Eastern,
6,
7 Pacific.
7 MST, Mountain Standard,
Mountain Standard
6
time.
o'clock Pacific.
Yeah. So we got through some of our leftovers. We still got way more, but I think we're going to save them for another time. I'm hoping that my mom listens to this episode. Maybe one of them. Maybe she just doesn't listen anymore. I don't know. But we appreciate that you all listen to us. Remember, April 6th, we are trying to save lives with suicide prevention course. Again, you could register for that on the ngbn.tv network /save a life. Our show today brought to you by Dream Reach Achieve, We Drone. Thanks for them for being our sponsors. If any of you want to sponsor our show, we'd be glad to have you aboard. It's great to have you all. The comments were great. The James Bond stuff, the whistleblower stuff. You are fantastic. I always get charged up after the show, and it's hard to wind down. I'm going to go listen to some Veritas before I go to bed. We got to thank Jenna for producing the show. We're going to see you guys all next week right here on The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Oh, yeah, we don't have...